Hi, welcome to Unscripted. I'm your host, Bryce Curry. And in this series, we have candid one-on-one conversations with medical professionals to learn more about their medical journey, common struggles faced by doctors today, in hopes to encourage you throughout your residency or fellowship as you make some big decisions. On today's episode, I have a great conversation with Dr. Gibson, and we get a chance to learn more about one alternative to a traditional path in a medical career, and that is being a traveling doctor, and all that entails on this episode of Unscripted. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Unscripted. We aim to feature doctors and medical practitioners across the country and to encourage you, our audience, those that are in medical school, residency, and fellowship, working your way through the medical journey. And on our podcast here with Unscripted, today we have Dr. Gibson. Welcome, Dr. Gibson. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So to start off, what I'd like to do is just give you a moment to kind of talk a little bit about yourself and kind of your background. I think would be a good place to start.
Sure. So my background is I am trained as an internist. So my residency was in internal medicine. I grew up in the rural south of this country. Attended undergrad in Alabama. Ventured out to attend medical school at the University of Kansas Medical Center in Kansas City, which was a great experience for me. And at the beginning of my journey, I thought I wanted to be a urologist. So at the advice of a mentor, I made my way to Miami, Florida, to the University of Miami, Jackson Memorial Hospital, to do a internship in urology. I applied to the program, didn't get accepted, and decided that I liked Miami and I would stay. But I chose internal medicine instead of general surgery.
Okay.
Fast forward, completed that internship, and then made my way to California to complete my internal medicine residency. So that's my schooling background.
Very cool. And so there's moments as you are working through your educational journey where mentors, it sounds like, or a mentor guided you. Could you unpack that just a little bit? Because our audience, again, are individuals that are in that moment. What's kind of, I'd love to kind of hear from you the importance or, would you encourage residents to seek out mentors on their own, or does it kind of happen within the institutions, or what's your advice to a resident right now that might be wondering, like, hey, I have a lot to navigate through. I have family, I have friends that give me their opinions, I have my own thoughts. How did you kind of lean into mentors to help kind of maybe navigate some of the tough decisions that you had to make?
Great question. Some schools do offer like a somewhat pairing for mentors, but a lot of schools don't. And I think it's more challenging today for schools to offer that service. So I was fortunate to attend a medical school that actually had a program that matched medical students with residents, with interns, and then those residents and interns matched us with attending physicians. So it created an environment for you to easily reach out to a potential mentor. Not to say that they were all available, but it did create an easier environment. Today, I know it's not as easy for medical students or interns or residents to perhaps reach out. I would say if there's someone or if there's a field and you've identified a person that you potentially relate to, approach them. Don't approach them in the middle of rounds, but perhaps approach them after round and just express your interest. but it has to be a genuine interest. And just ask, can they provide some insight? But it can't just be a one-time approach. It has to be something that's more continuous, so that that potential mentee can see, excuse me, that potential mentor can see that you're truly interested.
Yeah.
Most doctors, most attending physicians who have someone approach them and they're truly interested, wholeheartedly embrace them.
And it's such a key point, and it's something that I know as I've had the pleasure of talking to many doctors across our Influent network from a guest perspective, or our podcast hosts, or on Unscripted, and there is this kind of reoccurring theme for someone like me that is not in that community or has gone through that much education and that journey, like such as yourself, that there is this sense, for the most part, that there are people ahead of you that are generally willing to help or give insight or perspective. There's this kind of mentorship thing, and I think it speaks, I'm assuming, to the community, that you guys all have this kind of deep desire to help other people. I mean, for the most part, right? And so that leads me to a question of kind of maybe what got you into medicine, or what, if you wouldn't mind just kind of sharing what kind of led you into being pursuing being a doctor. And then let's go ahead and start talking about kind of like what you're doing now, and kind of I'd like our audience to hear about how you're approaching patient care as a traveling doctor as well.
Sure. And let me just backtrack to that initial question about mentors and mentees, et cetera. If you are a medical student and you do reach out to an attending requesting guidance and they kind of back away from you or they're not interested, that's okay. Just find someone else. So don't be dissuaded by the fact that one person turns you down. There are multiple others. Now back to your second question.
Yeah, that's good.
I know most doctors have like a pivotal point where they can say that they knew for sure that they wanted to be a doctor. But for me, what I remember is being in junior high school, thinking that I want to be an anesthesiologist. Now, I don't know if I wanted that because I thought the word was cool or what, but that's what I remember.
Mm-hmm.
So, as I continued along the path, I knew I wanted to be in a profession that helped people. And so from that junior high to high school period where I thought I wanted to be an anesthesiologist, somehow I found myself thinking, no, I want to be a psychologist. I want to talk to people. I want to help them with their problems, etc. And once I entered undergrad, I knew I didn't want to do that anymore. And I surrounded myself with pre-med students who all had a known path, or so they thought. And so that kind of propelled me to think a little bit more about what I truly wanted to do. And then I ended up on the path of thinking that I wanted to be an obstetrician until I did my first OB rotation. And I was like, oh no, this is not for me.
Okay.
And then I found myself really liking surgery and did a rotation in medical school with urology. And I thought that's what I wanted to be. And I still like surgery. However, that wasn't the path for me. That wasn't the path.
And if you could maybe share a few, how did you, was there a way that you kind of evaluated those feelings or decisions? I mean, obviously looking at these different types of, specific types of medical care, was it just kind of a feeling that you had? Was it something that, I'm just looking for maybe some advice that we could give to residents right now that might be at that crossroads that you were. And I'd really love for you to maybe, if you have just a couple tips or or suggestions to what's the guiding light there? Is it trust yourself? Is it lean into a group of individuals that you seek advice from? What helped you navigate through some of those big decisions?
Trust yourself.
Mm.
So truly, if you think that you want to specialize in a certain profession, and maybe that's what you've had in your head, and maybe perhaps that's what your parents want you to do, and then you find yourself in a rotation, um, and it doesn't sit well with you, don't ignore that. That's your intuition guiding you. So that was key for me as well. Could I have stayed in urology? Maybe. I don't know. Probably not. Now that I think about it, probably not. But it's that gut feeling. And it's also what you can tolerate. So if you think that you want to be a surgeon and you don't like blood, then of course
Yeah.
you can't be a surgeon,
Right.
right? But if you can and you're deciding between, do I want to be a trauma surgeon? Do I want to be a general surgeon? Do I want to be a colorectal surgeon? Any of those things, when you are in a rotation and you're doing it outside of the long hours, because the hours are always going to be long. But if you are there, you're taking care of patients and you don't think about anything else but what you're doing in that moment, then that's your guiding light. That is your guiding light because this is what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. So you don't want to find yourself in a specialty where you're constantly just watching the clock to see, when's the last patient I'm going to get through, or I don't really want to be talking to this patient about this. It needs to be something where you can do it and you don't think twice about it. And at the end of the day, you're content. That's what matters.
Mm. Such good advice for those that are going to be listening to this, and I want them to be encouraged by what you're saying, in that you can trust yourself, but also there's probably a bit of self-evaluation and humility that goes into that, and looking at what is the trajectory of my career, what's fulfilling for me, and what does that look like down the road, right? And that kind of leads me to a question around like burnout.
Mhm.
Do you have you faced burnout, and how have you addressed the situation where you might find yourself in, I'm doing this for 5 years and I don't know if I want to keep doing it, or I'm going to try something different with, my profession. And I think that gets me back to one of the things I want to make sure we talk about, kind of what you're doing right now with being a travel doctor as well. And we can kind of unpack that.
Yeah. Well, great question. And a lot to unpack in that question. So you can do what you do and love it. And I think most doctors do what they do and they love it. And what I always say is, and this is a true testament, is taking care of patients for me is easy. It's natural. It's what I love to do. It's all the other stuff that you have to manage being a doctor that takes away from that. And to me, that's what leads to burnout. So it's the insurances, it's employees, it's
Yeah.
payroll, it's all of that that goes along with that. And even if you don't have your own practice, it's still issues with administrators, so many other things outside of actual patient care.
Mhm.
Personally, I think that that's what leads to burnout. For me, I always knew that I wanted to work for myself without a doubt. So out of residency, I took a job with a company for maybe a year and a half just to kind of get my grounding in the new state that I was in. And then after that, I've always been pretty much on my own.
Yeah.
In that comes a lot of responsibility. So at one point, I had a private practice. It was more of an urgent care, primary care combination. So lots of responsibilities, lots of equipment to manage, lots of staff to manage. And of course, I had a team, But in the wake of medicine today and how things transitioned, I found myself really struggling with insurances. I'll be honest.
Mm-hmm.
That was the hang up. So you can take care of patients, you submit all of your necessary paperwork, but then you still have to wait for payments. And so that can have a snowball effect sometimes.
Sure.
At the end of 10 years, 11 years of doing that, uh, I just decided that I needed to pivot in my career as an internist. And I'm an internist that likes acute care. So I did urgent care in the office, hospitalist admissions. I've been an ER attending at times. So I always like the acute care portion of that. But I can do both the chronic care as well. But I decided I wanted to pivot. And I pivoted because I would be sitting in my office at the end of the day thinking, okay, again, the patients are easy. But I found myself being consumed with so much other stuff outside of patient care. And I tolerated it for many years. And then I decided just, I'm going to listen to my gut
Mm.
and make a change. So, what I decided to do was to sell my practice. And with that comes a lot of extra burden too, because you have to shut everything down and transition everyone out. But I made the decision against a lot of naysayers to try something different.
Mm.
And I reached back into my old bag and contacted some prior contacts that I had with some travel doctor or locum tenens companies, which is what they're also called, and basically just re updated my profile and said, let me just take a travel assignment to clear my head and kind of figure out what my next move is. And I did that. And that's what I've been doing since then.
That's really amazing. So we talked about through your educational journey, trusting in yourself and using that as a compass to make some big decisions and deciding what to specialize in. And then it's kind of a full circle moment as you're in your attending to make a big decision like that, right? To say, I'm going to transition from a private practice and try something different. Um,
Mhm.
so just real quick, let's establish or kind of define. I think probably most of our audience has heard about traveling doctors to some extent, but let's just take a moment and if you would just kind of establish what do we mean by a traveling doctor and kind of unpack that a little bit for our audience, if you would, as they consider that
Sure,
potentially as an option.
sure. I use the term travel doctor because a lot of young doctors are familiar with travel nurses. So it's similar to that, but the technical term for travel doctors is locum tenens. And pretty much it's a concept that's been around for decades. And pretty much you are filling in as a physician in a company or a facility or a clinic for temporary staffing until that facility finds a permanent physician.
Okay.
That's the premise of it. Again, it's been around for a long time. However, a lot of new doctors, residents, interns, they've never heard of it. They didn't even know it was an option.
Mhm. So I come from the world of business, and in business we have terms like fractional CFO or fractional marketing vice president, right? Is it similar to that, or are you working on? Do you work more on like I'll be at this location for 6 months, a year until, or I mean, how do you kind of what's the structure like there, or is there none? And is that part of the excitement of it?
Yeah, there's a structure and there are several options. So, for instance, the way that it works is you would credential or contact a company that offers this service. Pretty much, there are companies that offer this service, and then you let them know what of course, your specialty is and what you're looking for. So it depends on the doctor. Do you want to work in a hospital? Do you want to work in someone else's private clinic? If you're a surgeon, do you want to work in a surgery center, or do you want to work in a nursing home or a rehab center? So you just present yourself to the travel doctor company and to start the credentialing process. They will come back with a list of multiple options that are out there for you in multiple areas, multiple states, etc. And literally you choose. So one, say, clinic or facility may say, oh, we need a surgeon to cover ER call for our facility for the next 6 months.
Okay.
Or maybe a surgery center that says, okay, we need a general surgeon just for routine general surgeries in our outpatient facility for the next 2 weeks. So it can vary. However, most assignments will usually last for at least 3 months.
Okay.
And I say that in that, it takes a lot of credentialing and fact checking to bring on a new doctor to a company. So they need that lead time to do all their due diligence. So typically, if you sign that contract and it's for, say, to do ER call at our hospital, most of the time they will come back and say, okay, we need you for the following month, the following month, the following month. Or you can say, well, I don't want to do it, and choose to move on to another assignment. So there's lots of flexibility.
Yeah, there's a lot of flexibility, it sounds like, and variety, which probably provides a bit of for some people like that type of change and kind of new adventure, which it sounds like fits well for you. And how do you? So if I'm a resident right now and I'm thinking about what I should do, what should my next step be? Should I go into private practice? Should I go into a group or an institution? And I'm faced with all these decisions, or continue my education into fellowship in a certain specialty. One of the things on this episode, and I'm so grateful that you're joining us on, is to talk about this option. And so I want to talk a little bit more about that. So you're working with a company that kind of serves, I'm going to use the term broker. Is that a fair term? They kind of work, they're your middle person that says, hey, Dr. Gibson, we have this opportunity. This is the commitment. This is the structure. And then you can say yes or no. Is that kind of how that works?
Correct. Yes.
So first step would be is if you're interested in if your personality, is such where, you like different kind of opportunities and are adaptable to change, you'd reach out to a company that would provide you these jobs, right? Or these opportunities to serve. Now, does that require a lot of travel? Let's talk a little bit to what does that mean for you as an individual? Do you have to then plan to live in a different place for that 6-month period or whatever that commitment might be? Or how does that work?
Yeah. So the way that it works typically is the broker company will cover your travel expenses. So they're usually going to cover your airline ticket, your hotel stay, your rental car. Typically, they don't include food, but those main items.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the assignment, you can choose to work locally in your area as a travel doctor. So someone says, oh, well, how is that being a travel doctor? You're just local and you can stay at your own home, and they'll usually cover your gas expenses if that's the case. Okay. So if, say, I am in New York and I am an internist who just I just finished my internal medicine residency. I perhaps don't want to sign on to a long-term contract right away. I contact the company, this broker company or travel doctor company, let them know what I'm looking for. I may choose to stay in New York in my community if there's an opportunity, if there's a job there, if there's an opportunity there for that, you can, or you can choose to go to upstate New York. Um, Again, it would depend on what that particular facility was looking for. In terms of travel, so they will usually tell you the job assignment will say, we need you for 7 days out of the month, or we need you for 7 days on, 7 days off, or we need you for the entire month. So if they need you for 7 days out of the month, you travel to the facility, you work your 7 days, your hotel expenses are paid for, your rental car, you travel back home. Voila, you're done. Until the next month or whatever schedule that you've arranged with them. If it's more like they need you for the entire month, then you're probably going to be staying in that area for that time. And again, your expenses are covered, right? Your hotel, or if you choose that you don't want to be in a hotel that long, you can find an Airbnb or, midterm rental, and there'll be some comparable reimbursement for that as well. So yeah, you typically go back and forth. But the beauty of it is that when you go there and you work that time period, you're working. When you're done, you're completely done. And you can come back home to your family and have all of your time to yourself.
So that's a great point, and kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier around burnout and just different things. I mean, we all in our jobs have times of burnout, and maybe we're doing the same thing and there's a repetitiveness to it, and we're looking for a change. And one of the things that I find really interesting about this is that you kind of have the flexibility, it sounds like, to say no or try different types of scheduling, different types, geographic locations. But it's interesting. Let's talk, just if you would, a little bit more about that, because that is something that has come up. And when I've talked to different residents at conferences and stuff, is as they're considering what their next options are, is boundaries or time. Right, time is one of our most precious resources. It's definitely up there when you start having family and loved ones and stuff like that, but even for yourself. And so do you view this option of becoming and pursuing a traveling like being a traveling doctor as a way to, have you found it to create boundaries? I mean, for your schedule, like you're saying, where then the clinic is responsible for a lot of the overhead and everything, and you just get to focus on patient care?
Yes, that's the beauty of it. And it's not that you're giving better patient care. It frees you to focus strictly on that. So once you make it to your location, you're strictly focusing on that. Here's the other thing too, as a resident or fellow who's finishing, sometimes you're pressured into taking a job or signing a contract for a long-term job, and you're not even sure if you're going to like it, right? Like a lot of you don't know. You're just like, okay, well, I'm going to go to Colorado. I'm going to take this job. I don't know if I'm even going to like it. What being a traveling doctor allows you to do is you can still be a fellow. Just say if you're a nephrology fellow and you take an assignment in Colorado, it gives you an opportunity to get a feel for the area. So maybe if you've never been there before, you get a feel for the area, you get a feel for the people. You also get to experience different, practice settings in terms of, like, if it's a private, say, dialysis or private nephrology practice versus one of the more chain nephrology practices. So you get a feel for what it's like to be in different settings. And again, listening to your gut instinct or what feels right for you, then you'll know what aligns with you, and you can make better choices about your permanent employment or your permanent job if that's what you so choose.
Mm-hmm. So, so a resident could look at this as an opportunity to, instead of just making a commitment and going all in, they could do a period of time of being a traveling doctor and experiencing a lot of what you're talking about. Does it ever potentially lead into the opportunity for a full-time like employment or a longer term engagement?
Yes, oftentimes it does. And
Okay.
here's the great thing about that is, uh, well, recently there's an announcement made within the last week that these no compete or
Yes.
restricted covenant clauses are going to be done away with, right? But before this announcement, that's a big thing in medicine where, you take a job somewhere, you decide you don't like it. Sometimes you can be banned from that entire city.
Yes.
So you have to find a new city to go work. Um, if you are a resident and you're trying things out, you go to the site, you like the travel assignment, you like the people. Sometimes they'll actually go to the company, the broker company, and just ask them, hey, we're interested in bringing this person on permanently. The great thing is you don't have to worry about a restricted covenant clause. All the broker company is going to say is, well, and that's usually in your signing contract. If they bring you on as a permanent physician with their company, then they'll pay like a recruitment fee.
That's it. Yep.
And that's it. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I really like this place, but I'm not going to be able to stay because of, you know, a no compete clause.
Right.
Yeah, it happens a lot.
Yeah. I in talking with a lot of physicians, the non-compete is a big deal, especially with contract negotiations. And that's so I would want our audience to really key in on what Dr. Gibson's talking about and exploring this. For that reason, I think it's a really interesting way to not only experience variety and all the things that she's talking about as far as geographic location, practice type, management fit, not necessarily having to deal with all the overhead that comes with some of the full-time stuff, but also having kind of this adventure of experiencing different clinics, different patients, in different geo areas. One question I have, and this is definitely coming from someone that doesn't know much about um, practicing from state to state, but I assume there's different things with licensing. Could we talk a little bit about that? Do you have to become licensed in, like if you're in, I'll just make up a scenario. If I'm in Iowa and I have an opportunity in Texas and it's for 6 weeks and I want to take that, do I as the doctor have to go through anything? Does the broker company work, or is there anything that kind of is like an interstate um, licensing kind of option?
Yeah, yeah. So the, again, so if you are already what we call credential with one of these travel doctor companies, they will apply for the state license for you. Of
Uh,
course, you have to um, sign the paperwork and
Sure.
etc. But they will apply for you. So that's one advantage of it, right? So you can gain a lot of state medical licenses
Yeah.
um, at the at no cost to you. At no cost to you. Second part of that question, in terms of like a interstate or multi-pack type of licensing, there is an entity that exists. It's called the IMLCC, with Interstate Medical Licensure Compact. And pretty much not every state participates, but it, I think I want to say it's about 30 states and territories that participate right now. Could be a little bit more because more states are joining every year. But what this allows is for you to license with this entity, and it streamlines your state licensing process for any of the other participating states. So, for instance, like I know California is not a part of it at this time. Florida is not a part of it at this time, but just say Georgia and the neighboring state, Alabama. they participate. So if you had a license in Georgia and you wanted to pursue an assignment in Alabama, but you didn't have that state license for Alabama, having this interstate medical licensure compact license would allow you to get licensed in Alabama within a 2-week time frame versus a 3-month time frame.
Mm-hmm.
So it streamlines the process.
It's really interesting. Have you noticed, the need for traveling doctors? Has that increased as a causal? Like, is there a causal relationship with the COVID pandemic and the doctor shortages and different things like that? Have you seen demand for this increase, meaning the opportunities of traveling to different places and practicing medicine? Or is it
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So there's always been a demand. Again, just not a lot of the new doctors knew about it. So
Yeah.
there's always been a demand. So even when I dabbled in travel doctoring 20 years ago, there was a demand then. But at that time, I didn't want to be all over the country.
Sure.
COVID for sure changed that. With the burnout, with a lot of doctors leaving the profession, facilities are definitely short-staffed. So they have a two-pronged approach, right? So there's a demand, but sometimes when you get there, there's
Sure.
2 times the amount of responsibilities that you may have. Not all the time, but sometimes it can be. It just depends on where you end up. But for sure, with burnout, with COVID, the demand is huge. And let me segue into this that I want to get out there is that before, if you were a resident or fellow finishing up and you wanted to be a travel doctor, most places would say, or most companies would say, oh, well, you need to have 2 to 3 years of experience before any hospital or clinic will consider you. COVID changed that, changed it completely. So now hospitals, clinics, facilities are really, they're reevaluating that. So you can be a cardiology fellow right out of fellowship and become a travel doctor. Yeah.
So as we kind of close our time here, what I just have a couple more questions. What advice would you give to our audience that might be aware of some of what we've talked about, but would like more information? What's a good resource that they could lean into to kind of find out more? Is there a community that is out there on any of the digital platforms, or is there a known entity that they could go out to on their website and learn more about it? Or how would a resident find out more information that they could consume on their own time?
Yeah. So there are different travel doctor companies or locum tenens companies that are out there. There are lots of podcasts, there are YouTube channels, etc. But what I find is there's a little bit of something everywhere. So because of that, I created a kind of one-stop source where a new fellow, a new resident or new attending, et cetera, that was considering this, that guides you through the process and gives you more information. So number one, I created a free PDF download that lists the major travel doctor companies and links to their websites. So you can just go download that. And on each of those websites, it will give you a little bit more information about the whole process in and of itself, but it's from each company, of course. And then I created an online course as well to guide any potential doctors, whatever stage in their career that they're at, to guide them through the process as well. Because again, there's not one place, so to speak, where you can get everything So you're kind of like out there. And I'm sure there may be some Facebook communities on as well. I think I've heard of some Facebook communities. I'm not on Facebook. I'm a
Sure.
little
Okay.
but but in terms of like an organization that's strictly devoted to being a travel doctor,
Mhm.
no.
Okay.
But there are podcasts out there though. Yeah.
But it sounds like you're consolidating some of that information. And is that a
Yeah.
website? Feel free to share that website or that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
So the website, so on the website, it's www.soulemdtravel.com. And
okay.
so once you get to the website, you'll see the option for the free download. There's also another comprehensive guide that's there. And then there's information about that. And then there's also instructions on how you can join the course.
Very
And it's
good.
pretty concise, but it's just everything that you need to know. We don't learn anything about financing
Mhm.
in medical school.
Mhm.
So I dive into that as well. You know, we don't learn anything about setting up our own practices. We
Yeah.
have to figure that out on our own when we're done.
Yeah.
But I don't talk about that, but I do talk about how establishing yourself as a financial entity. Yeah.
Mhm. Very good.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
we'll link that in the show description as well, your
Yes.
website, because this is a message we want to get out to our audience across our network, because of some of the main points that we've talked about here today. When you might be trying to decide what's your next step. Also, you might be in a position right now where you're faced with some burnout, and change might be a possible solution for that, or at least a potential way of trying something different. I think
Hmm.
we also talked about there's a bit of freedom that comes with the ability to use a brokerage company to do a lot of the work for you, and from a licensing standpoint, right? And also placement and working on your behalf. Um, have you found, being a travel doctor, that you have, I'm going to say, the free time? I don't know. Doctors often don't have a ton of time outside of patient care, but have you found you can have more freedom of your schedule to develop some, what I'll call, boundaries to do some other things outside of medicine?
Absolutely. That is the attraction for me at this stage of my career. You can work as much as you want to work or not.
Mm,
You can, there may be times in your year, you know, that you perhaps want to work a little bit more, and other times of the year that you want to back off a little bit. You have that freedom. You have the freedom to block your work time. So just say you want to work, I want to work 2 weeks out of the month, and I'm going to work 2 weeks in a row, and then I want to have the other half of the month to just focus on whatever my side business, etc.
mhm,
But you want to be able to focus on it solely. You know,
mhm.
it, it gives you that option because again, you're not on call when you're not working, when you're not on that assignment. You don't have to worry about, okay, this is my weekend of call, this is my night of call, which interferes with a lot. So it is freedom, it's autonomy, it's working smarter, it brings balance back.
Mm. It's powerful because one of the things that in as we've been talking with physicians that are attending and maybe 15, 20 years in their career as they reflect, and we've had them on Unscripted or on other podcasts, they talk about they might not necessarily always use the word well-being, but this balance. And
Mhm.
I've talked to surgeons that have, when they self-reflect, they look back and they wish they maybe would have balanced their time or figured out a way to create margins, or, like I said earlier, some of them have used the word boundaries, to have some time that Maybe they felt like they've lost a little bit, whether it's with kids or loved ones or just even hobbies or something that they wanted to do. And so one of the great things about what we're talking about today is that this is an option. And that's why we wanted to have Dr. Gibson on, is to share her experiences and what she's doing right now, and some of the benefits of, considering being a travel doctor, and the opportunities that offers from a professional standpoint, like we've talked about, but also a personal overall well-being and balance, and just how important that is for you as an individual, but also for the quality of patient care.
Yes.
As we close out, I always like when I get a chance to talk to individuals like yourself that have so much experience and are putting themselves out there and saying, "Hey, this is an alternative. Check it out. I've created a resource for you to consume some information. This is what I've learned." So I always like to ask this question: what one thing, if you look back on your educational journey, would you do differently?
Maybe in my more formative years, in high school, I probably would have pursued more summer programs that were more focused on science, like STEM,
Mhm.
Um, I didn't do that when I was in high school, but throughout my career, as I meet other colleagues, they had exposure to that. And so once you're exposed to that it kind of gives you a broader spectrum of lenses to view through,
Mm.
and exposes you to more. So I would say for me, that's the one thing that I would change. However, again, intuitively, that's what I kind of was drawn to. So uh, I made that happen
Yeah.
later in my career, but I would have done that earlier. So that's that's pre college, pre medical school, etc. Um, if I'm a medical student, I would definitely do rotations. If you have an option to do rotations at other facilities or out of state, or even if you have an opportunity to go abroad, which I was able to do as well
Mm.
in my medical school, I would definitely say do that for sure.
Very good. Very good. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much. And what is the website one more time?
It's www.solmdtravel.com.
Very good. And again, we'll link all this information in our show description. Dr. Gibson, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing your experience, your insights, and your wisdom with our audience as they're working through their medical journey. And it's been a pleasure, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Dr. Gibson for joining us today on Unscripted. We took a deeper look into her career as a traveling doctor. I hope our conversation today has shed some light on another option for medical careers that are different from a traditional path. Stay tuned for more discussions on important topics in the medical field. And one way to do that is to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode of Unscripted. I've been your host today, Bryce Curry, and we'll see you next time on Unscripted.